I feel that the current fans are much more passionate. They're much more
Interesting.
enthusiastic than I really could have imagined.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to the Disc Connected. I'm here with the man, Frank Djeng, who seems to be kind of everywhere, and I still want to know how that's possible for a human being to be spread as thin as you are and still be as amazing as you are. Frank, thanks for coming on here.
Oh, man, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. Well, 3 words, very little sleep.
As we're recording this, it's 10:30 at night where I am, and I got to work in 7.5 hours, but I do the same exact thing as you. Life is lived best on the edge for myself, and I'm curious how you get everything done. So we're going to dive into everything. For those that don't know, you're kind of like one of the godfathers of Asian home video. Can you explain your background of what you've done for us over the last couple of decades? Yes.
No.
Let's not be so humble, Frank. Come on.
Well, I started back in the mid-90s with Taiseng, Taiseng Entertainment, which was, the largest distributor of Hong Kong entertainment in the U.S. until it folded in, 2014. Well, I left before they folded, but yeah. I started working for them, in 1996, worked there for 12 years. And that's how I kind of really started in I guess you can call it business or the industry, the Asian film distribution industry. I was the marketing manager for them for 12 years. They were looking for somebody to expand their catalog titles to the English-speaking market. So, they needed someone who can actually promote this for the English-speaking demographics, and help them do new subtitles, new like design the jackets, make it more like Westerner friendly, that sort of thing. So
yeah.
And they were actually having trouble finding somebody for the position. They were looking for, like, they've been looking around for like 2 or 3 months. They couldn't find the right candidate, and then the HR person who worked there happens to be one of my friend's friend, and she remembered that I would go to Chinatown every weekend, just to see movies. I was doing that for like over 10 years, from the time I came here to U.S. to I graduated from college, and I still, kept on doing it. So, and she knew it, and so she said, "Hey, maybe he should try it." She told my friend, and maybe ask Frank to try this and try the job, and I tried it, and they hired me. So that's how it all kind of got started.
And throughout those years that you were there, it seemed to be pretty much like the big boom era for that market, in my opinion, at least, for them growing and really proliferating throughout a lot of the U.S. releases and the DVD era, and all the work that you put into it. It seemed to really, really help them hit it off with a lot of people.
Yeah, and the funny thing was, I had no idea what kind of an impact our work has on the public until actually recently, when thanks to social media, people started telling, I have all your Taiseng stuff. I love your like bright white hair, and I love what you did with Taiseng. And that was actually something that I never get to hear when I was working for Taiseng.
Wow. Because
at that time, the only sort of social media you have would be the internet forums, and people on the forum are usually just criticizing you, saying like, like how come the bright white hair laser is so damn expensive? Why did you do it as CAV? Like you're trying to rip us off. And I mean, like, there are a lot of negative comments on the internet forum at that time. Nobody would say, we really appreciate what you did, blah blah blah. Nothing like that. So for me, we just work as usual every week. Every month I churn out releases after releases. So it was only until after I started doing these commentary for the UK boutique label, and then on then joining various Facebook groups and stuff, then I began getting these comments from folks that I grew up watching the Taiseng stuff. I still have the VHS. I still have Part A and Part B. That sort of thing. Back then it was people just complaining, why are you doing Part A and Part B? And then try to explain, it's for rental market, blah blah blah. Of course they don't. They didn't listen. They're just still complaining. But now it's almost like a nostalgia kind of thing to have. a VHS at a part A and part B to split Drunken Master 2 into 2 tapes, So no, it's actually very gratifying to finally realize at least some sort of impact that I have on the people who love these kind of films, and to get that recognition 10 years after I left Taising, to me that was really I was really heartened by that.
Man, that's really cool that you're getting that nowadays. And I'm curious, are you getting much feedback nowadays on the current stuff as well, or are people fairly quiet
on my commentaries?
Yeah.
No, I mean, of course, there are those who complimented me, which I really thank them. There were a few that kind of give me some positive criticism, which I find very constructive. For instance, I think actually a few months ago, I accidentally read some posts that talk about my Mr. Vampire commentary. And the person mentioned one thing that I didn't do was the fact that I didn't explain all the Chinese funeral customs that you saw in the film. See, to a Chinese like me, it's like, this is second nature. Like,
it's normal, yeah.
It's normal. So why do I need to explain it,
Exactly.
Why do I need to explain Lam Cheng-Ying throwing paper money? I mean, obviously the paper money is for the dead, right? That sort of thing. But hey, since somebody said, well, I don't know what that means, then okay, right. Well, I'll try to rectify that. And that's why when I did the Dead in the Delhi commentary, which also have similar like Chinese funeral rituals and stuff, I try to explain as much as possible where these monks is doing the overnight service to kind of like help the spirit, go to the other stuff. Like what the paper, all those paper gifts mean, like the paper bridges, and like these are all like offerings for the dead. And so I try to explain what those are, rather than just kind of just go right by like I did in Mr. Vampire, because to me it was like I thought that was obvious enough that you don't need to explain. Yeah.
That's neat. And there's this interesting aspect that so many people will not be able to experience these other cultures that they're getting through some of these films. So these commentaries can be a lot more insightful and educational than people realize, because when you think about it, some of these films covered literal decades and all kinds of different corners of the world. And if we get to hear about all of these other customs and cultures, it's literally like a travelogue in some senses, because we're seeing everything that we may never be able to get to see in real life.
I'll tell you one thing though, people love the fact that I point out where like the certain locations are, like on what street, because they say, you know what, like I mentioned, the restaurant in Ebola Syndrome is on, on Waterloo Road.
Yep.
But it's no longer there. But actually, I say it's like on 67 Waterloo Road, and I will have people like post, like messaging me saying, you know what? I actually went to Google Map and looked for that place. I said, oh, it's gone, But they just love knowing where they are, so that they can go to Google Maps and like search for it. Which I'm glad. I'm glad. Like I mentioned before, like the one thing that I try to do the most in my commentaries is to point out things that a Westerner probably wouldn't know had they understand Chinese, because these are things that were covered in Chinese articles or interviews that are not covered in the Western press. So that's what I try to do. That's why I try to cover as much as possible, so that I guess it's because of my nature as also a librarian. My side job is also a librarian. So it's like the librarian in me. I'm trying to help. I'm trying to give you knowledge. I'm trying to do a teachable moment. So yeah, to me, the commentaries are kind of like reference, like answering that question. So it's kind of like a teachable moment, but for fans of Hong Kong cinema, I want them to know more. I want them to understand what's behind it, especially not just on location, not just on the history of Hong Kong, but also on wordplay, like on what they're saying, what they mean, all that jazz.
The translations don't always line up in such an easy way. So the commentaries, especially from you, have been helpful in a way that before I started listening to them, I wasn't really prepared for that sort of education, but it has helped so much to be able to watch them again. And with that insight, just appreciate it like 10% more, which makes the movie just that much better. And it's so great to be able to just understand these in a way that you really dive in, and it helps on repeat viewings in ways that I didn't expect.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah. I try to I try to find a nice balance between I guess scholarly or academic or educational, like I say, and entertaining. And I want you to learn, but I don't want you to be bored by my commentary. I don't want to sound just like a your highbrow scholar or whatever that that just lecture you. I don't want to lecture you. I guess that's the main point. The feeling that I want to give from my commentary is like I'm someone who said you got to watch this movie, and I'm going to explain to you why you got to watch this movie, why I love this movie, and why you should love this movie too. So that was my approach, and try to be both educational and entertaining at the same time, as much as possible. Of course, in solo commentary, because solo commentary is always hard. Like try to make it fun. Obviously with a partner, it's much easier to make it a bit more jovial, so to speak. But
right. All of my favorite commentators, I've kind of assigned like a role when I go into them. I know what I'm getting into, and I hope this is a compliment because I certainly mean it as such. When I listen to Frank Djeng, I picture Frank as my tour guide, and in the best possible way. It's somebody that is showing me around and making it educational but fun in the meantime, because you want to make it memorable for the person watching.
Yes, no, love it. Tour guide, perfect. And also, I want to share my enthusiasm too. I want to reflect my enthusiasm for the film in the commentary to show you, like, I'm not just doing it as a job. I'm not just doing it because some label asked me to do it. It's not a duty thing. It's not a job. It's not like, just another project. Right. This is, the movie that I do is as much a passion project for me as for the audiences, and I can't tell you how happy I am when I say, when a label say, hey, you want to do this film? I said, oh, of course, love it. Like Johnny To film, please, that sort of thing. Samuel Hong, yes, So it's really been an honor and a privilege to be able to contribute to some of these classic films, which I really enjoy and love.
That's so great to hear. And I'm just glad that we're preserving these contextual voices around it too, because not only do the films deserve that, but the context of like the impact that people felt while watching this film that you've talked about during a lot of your commentaries. There's a lot that we would just lose if we weren't having those on those releases. So I say this to a lot off air to a lot of our commentators, but genuinely thank you, because the amount of stuff that you put in, it's hard. It's not like an easy thing that people can just wake out of bed and do from the moment they get up. And it takes a ton of work.
It takes a ton of research. Again, me being a librarian means, and whenever I see something that I want to, like, I got to explain this, then I just over-research. I always over-research, which accounts for some delay on some of my commentary turning them in. So I always apologize to the label when I turn them late. But I want to let them know there's a reason for it, and it's because I over-research on a lot of things. Right. I actually just did another commentary this overnight, and I can't review it yet because it hasn't been announced. But every time, like this movie was more like a classic Hong Kong film from the early '80s, not a martial art films, but because there's so many different references, the moment like one single reference came up, I have to do research on it. And it's not because I don't know about it; I knew about it, but I want to also give a historical context.
Right.
Like for example, there's a scene set in a public housing estate area. So look, I can do the easy way out. I just mention, this is the so-and-so housing estate in where, right? That's it. But I want you to know, how did that housing estate come about? What's the reason behind the housing estate existing?
Yep.
What happens to it now? And, so forth. So anytime something like that comes up, I'll try to do some research and also like try to condense it so that I have enough time just to talk about it, enough that you understand all these background, all these content, but yet don't over like explaining it so that I jump into the next scene. And that to me is the hardest part about doing commentary.
Right.
It's almost like scoring a film. You know what I mean? Like you score.
Oh yeah.
You're trying to sync the music to the visuals. I'm like trying to sync what I want to say to the visual so that by the time that scene is over, I either have convey all I want to convey or maybe go over a little bit.
Just slightly, yeah.
Nowadays, like in some of the more recent commentary, I find that really hard because there's so much I want to cover, even initially in the opening scene. So, like on this commentary that I just did last night, in fact, I actually did overnight. I only slept a few hours today. I actually have to, like there was, I know there were places where I had to go back and say, by the way, I just want to talk about the previous scene, because like I haven't even finished introducing the actors and stuff. I have to go back and explain it or some of the lines that the character's saying. And to me, that was important because I want you to get the context, like this film, like I'm talking about, there were a lot of phrases that were used because of how popular they were during that era in the 80s. So I have to explain why the character was saying that line and where it came from and all that jazz. So they at least get a little idea of the cultural aspect of the film.
Right.
Because these are really historical documents. These are like a glimpse into the past. So I think it's important for the younger people who never experienced that era.
Definitely.
Okay, this is actually something important back then, or this is something very popular back then. For instance, like in this film, this film is very serious throughout, but in the middle there's a music video. and it's kind of jarring, because this film is totally serious, drama stuff, and all of a sudden you have a music video. And I had to explain why there's a music video, because during the 80s, that's how they promote the song.
Yeah.
To promote the song, they have to play it during the film, so that once the audience has finished watching the film, they will go out and go to the record store and buy the record, buy the album, buy the cassette, or what have you. So that's why they have, no matter what kind of genre your film has, comedy, whatever, you must have a music video. That sort of thing.
And a lot of these are either like nearing 40 years old, and the history behind these, even if you did, happen to remember a lot of those things, a lot of it, you're not going to remember all the details. So I imagine there's a ton of research, even to the most minute, tiny things in these. But the cool thing, you're kind of revealing these to like your second generation of home video viewers with everything that you've done in your life. And just somebody like you, the history that you've lived through and been able to witness in cinema is such a cool and just insightful thing. So listening to you, it's always incredible to hear, the things that you describe that have changed over time. That's one of the biggest things. Is this how it was in the 80s, and now it's completely abandoned or whatever? You go into great detail, and I'm curious, with the amount of research that it seems that you do, how long from literal start to finish of a commentary, how much work do you think you're actually putting in?
Usually I try to give myself at least like 1 to 2 weeks for research.
Yeah.
And then I write the script, and then I do it. With the workload I've been getting, it's been getting impossible. I finished the research and the script for this latest one that I did in 3 days.
Whoa.
That
is way different for Frank. Holy cow.
It was late. One, it was late already.
Yeah.
2, I have 8 other commentaries I need to finish before the end of the year. So, and I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining, and it's not because of the job. It's because I'm so glad that there's so many labels putting out so many of these classic films.
Yep.
And to be able to contribute to them is really an honor. And also, you mentioned the second generation. To me, this is like a second renaissance. We had, at least obviously I didn't go through the UK heydays with, Eastern Heroes, Hong Kong Legends. Yeah. And then I know how big they were. They were kind of big deal. They were back then. But with me, initially, in the 90s, we have Tai-Seng, we have Xenon, Crash Cinema, So we've gone through a similar kind of wave. And now we have this second wave, which to me is even better. I wish Tai-Seng was like that, with Blu-rays and all these remasters. Yeah. I look at the work I've done on Briar Whitehead Laserdisc, and then I look at the Eureka Briar Whitehead, the Tai-Seng is shit.
Right.
quality-wise. But back then, everyone was like, "Oh, it's beautiful." It was great. Of course, now you can see in HD, color graded, nice sound, all remastered. It's like this is actually much better. This is much better. What I'm doing is much more deserving, because the film is now presented in such a quality way.
Yeah.
That it kind of they really go hand in hand, and also. And because of the fact that these films are now so nicely remastered, I really have to kind of increase my game, so to speak. I got to, go even one step and beyond to really make sure that the commentary matches the quality of the film.
That's awesome, and it reflects that. You can tell that you're putting that much into it. You mentioned the librarian aspect. So for those that don't know, what all are you doing nowadays? Because it seems like you are on the clock, literally 24/7. It's actually probably like 36 hours a day, 7 days a week with what you do.
Yeah, I have two jobs in addition to what I'm doing, for the film. I have a full-time job working as a tech support guy for the government. So it's mostly, luckily is, like right now, the majority of the job is working from home. Obviously, because tech support, you don't really need to go to the office. So that, that's good. And then, so that, I mean, that cuts my commute time. I'm not saying that I work my movie stuff during my regular job. It's impossible to be honest, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Because as a tech support guy, you get all these help, uninterrupted. So no, it's possible. What I'm trying to say is the fact that I'm working from home for my main job really helps me in eliminating my commute time, so that I actually have more time to do other things, right? Normally if I go, let's say if I have to go to the office, it would take me 2.5 hours.
Jeez.
Yeah, just for commuting, taking the public transportation, traffic, and all that stuff. So by working from home, I gain 2.5 hours, and that's really good. So, but anyway, so that's my main job. I work on weekends as a librarian at at my local public library, and so I work Sundays and Saturday and Sunday, and I do have a day off for my other job because I did a job, the government job. I actually worked 4 days, and I do 4 work days, 10-hour jobs. So I do have. So for people who wonder, do I ever rest? Yes, I do rest. I do have a day of rest, although most of the time that day of rest is committed to commentary stuff. So, but hey, I love it. So yeah.
And that's the thing. That's if you love what you do and you are doing this with all of your time, it's got to be an enjoying, fulfilling time for you. And it seems like it truly is. And it's nice to see you getting the recognition that it feels like you've deserved for quite some time.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah.
With all these labels, what have been some of the releases that you are most proud to have worked on in the second wave now?
Good question. Definitely Bright White Hair. Because Bright White Hair was my first title that I did at Taiseng. The first, when I
didn't realize that.
Right, when I joined Taiseng in 1996, they already started the so-called English department, so they've been releasing a few titles. So when I joined, they already have 4 titles done. Done meaning everything's done. They've gone to press and all that stuff. So they did Organized Crime and Trial Bureau, the Kurt Wong movie, Wing Chun, Michelle Yeoh, and Heroic Trio and Executioner. So those are already done. So when I went in, the first hands-on project was Bright White Hair. Wow. But that was the next title. And so that to me is almost like I was always looking at it as my first baby, and I was very proud that my work for the Taiseng Bright White Hair, first with Laserdisc and then later on with the DVD when I added commentary, Peter Powell. Did I add Peter Powell? Oh no, I think it's Ronnie Yu because Peter Powell wasn't available for Bright White Hair, but Peter Powell did the cinematography commentary for Phantom Lover, I think. I forgot. Anyway, Peter Powell did one commentary. Ronnie Yu did both. Okay, Ronnie Yu did both Bry and Phantom Lover. But anyway, so I was able so it's like this. So when Taiseng did the DVD for Bry, I was able to go back and add stuff. Add the commentary. So now and then when Eureka said, "Oh, we're going to do Bright White Hair," I said, "Oh my God, this is like
it's full circle."
I want a full circle, and I want to make this like the definitive version. And to include as many people as possible, which is why I said, look, we got to interview Ronnie again. We got to interview Richard, the composer, Richard Yun. We got to at least, I know, we should interview the people that know who are around.
Yeah.
So, got Richard Yun, composer, Ronnie, the director, and then the screenwriter, Gay Yu. He's Jason. His name's Jason. He's in Hong Kong. Joe Tay, the actor who played Leslie Zheng's little brother in the film. And so that was something that I was really proud of because all that interview stuff were done in a month and a half. 5 interviews, I believe.
Wow.
Were done in 5 weeks. 5 interviews done in 5 weeks, a month and a half. And then of course we realized the master was totally screwed up color-wise because when they did the 4K remastering, Hong Kong did the remastering. For whatever reason, the colorists thought the color wasn't right. They said, "Oh, this is not natural. It's too blue, too saturated. Let's make it natural." So then, instead of having this sea of blue, which Peter Powell intended all along. Peter Powell and Ronnie intended all along, and which I preserve it in the Bright White Hair. I mean, the Djeng Laserdisc and DVD. They change everything to green, like urine yellow or whatever natural skin color, which is not what they wanted at all.
Right.
And then so I guess Eureka luckily pointed that out to me, asked me, hey, is this right? Should it be like this? I said, no, that shouldn't be like that. It should be like this. And so I showed them how the Djeng master looked like, and so Eureka was nice enough to actually did a color correction on it. And it got an approval by Ronnie because Peter Powell was busy in Beijing. And so to me, this is definitely the definitive version. And I hope, one day Eureka will be able to do it on 4K. I know that German 4K, but the German 4K didn't use our master. See, they used the screw up man. I mean, I shouldn't say screw up, but a different color.
Well, that and unfortunately, a lot of the German 4Ks lately have just been upscaled 4Ks. They're not true UHDs.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of issues. I think there was one. It's an upcoming release that hasn't been announced yet for another label that they were trying to force them to use the German 4K master, and the label said this isn't even 4K. Like, why would we use this? And there's a lot of problems over in the Germany restoration departments.
Mm-hmm.
But so Bride with White Hair. Any others that you would point to as, oh my gosh, these are the definitive? I'm so glad I was able to do this.
Yeah. Well, in terms of commentary, let's say like solo commentaries, Throw Down, Johnny O's Throw Down. That's really one of my favorite commentaries. And Duel to the Death.
I was going to bring that one up.
Millionaire's Express. Millionaire's Express is because I did a lot of research on it. Yeah, like down to the song that Eric Djeng was singing. When they remember in the beginning of the finale when Eric Djeng, the prisoner, got out of prison, he was singing la 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 la. Now, of course, if you like no canto, if you're like a canto pop fan, that's actually a song sung by Sam Hui. But then I realized that that's not. He didn't write that song.
Right.
That's a folk tune from, I guess, an American folk tune. So I was able to find out that's actually like a 19th century folk ballad sung by, I guess, slaves or during that time, during the Civil War period.
Wow.
So that sort of thing. And I'm kind of proud of that too, to be able to find stuff like that, So Millionaire's Express, Duel to the Death, Throw Down, definitely my number one. Ebola Syndrome. I know. Ebola Syndrome is great because it's a comedy. And I really enjoy doing that one, even though, as usual, I talk a little bit fast at times because I want to cover everything.
Of course.
Running Out of Time.
Nice.
Exiled. Forbidden City Cop, too, because I was, Forbidden City Cop was the first film that 88 Films asked me to do the commentary for. And I was just beyond, surprised or delighted to know, oh, my God, they're doing a Stephen Chow film. And the reason I liked doing it so much was I was able to explain the humor, because a lot of the Stephen Chow humor, obviously the physical humor, everybody can get it.
Right.
But the verbal humor, or the so-called 無厘頭 style, the no-nonsense style, which is not just verbal, but also like the way he presents that humor, it's kind of hard to explain unless you really know the language. And so that gave me an opportunity to at least dive into a little bit of that so that people at least can understand, like, oh, this shot is actually from, this is inspired by anime. This is the phrase this character speaking is actually from very popular Hong Kong commercial for cough syrup, that sort of thing, because there's a lot of blending of modern, because essentially he's a comedy, so the characters in these period films speaks modern Cantonese, and so there's a lot of references to commercial phrases, slangs and all that stuff, and this gave me an opportunity to kind of explain it. So that one also is one of my favorite commentary.
And honestly, I think that's why you're perfect for these, because a lot of these, the language is especially dated for that time, and not that it's a negative thing. It's just that's what was popular at the time, and the way that you explain it, I don't think anybody else does it better. It is such an easy way to have somebody basically hold your hand through it and learn why this is something that I should appreciate a lot more than I did on the first try.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want you to know why this is important, or why you should know this. Why Sammo Hung is like in what movie is that? Oh, The Odd Couple. Why Sammo is doing this gesture is because it's based on the weatherman forecast figure that you saw on the news, that sort of thing. So, but unless you live in Hong Kong, you grew up in Hong Kong, you
Right.
probably wouldn't know it, So, yeah.
Makes perfect sense. With you having done this for two different generations, you didn't get a lot of feedback back then, but I'm curious, are you seeing any differences in these Hong Kong film fans between, the late 90s, early 2000s and the film fans of today?
I feel that the current fans are much more passionate. They're much more
Interesting.
enthusiastic than I really could have imagined. Back in the Taiseng days, I see fans at Comic-Con, obviously.
Yeah.
Or when we go sell stuff at conventions, but mostly at Comic-Con. And to me, I just thought that the fans who are passionate are really those who go to Comic-Con. Who go to Comic-Con, right? I mean, I have people. When I work at Taiseng, people call and place an order. They'll talk about movies and stuff, but not to the extent that folks on social media now are. They are
Right.
knowledgeable, they are passionate, they know what they like. I mean, like I've seen people who know more about Mc Yun than I did. It's like, whoa, and the guy, he's not even Chinese. It's like, wow, and I don't even know. Like on this Facebook group, there's this guy who will always post fight scenes from TV series, and I was like, oh my god, and I mean that's passion,
Yep.
To be able to look for these TV series, which obviously have no English subtitle, to appreciate them and to know where these good fights are. I mean, it blows me away, man. It really blows me away, and that's kind of one of the reasons I tried to learn a bit more when I went to the UK a few months ago. I did a little vacation basically to UK, and also to meet the labels, to kind of thank them for really giving me this opportunity to do all this.
Oh, nice.
I really thought that I really should pay them a visit to personally thank them for allowing me to do all this. And so in the meantime, I tried to meet some of the fans. So I did meet a few of these fans. And yeah, it was like, wow, these guys are so knowledgeable, so passionate. They really enjoy these films, and they kept telling me oh, I learned so much. I really enjoy them. They when I'm down, I'm depressed, I watch one of these films,
Same.
listen to one of a commentary, and I'm all cheer up. And so, I mean, I'm really, really, really hardened by all that. Yeah,
It's so endearing to hear that you went and met the labels. I don't think many other people would have made that sort of a gesture, and it really just shows the kind of person you are. I'm so happy to have somebody like you in the community, because it really shows the strength and the genuine community that happens behind the scenes. And a lot of people that casually dip in, I don't think they really get how close knit a lot of these people can be with each other, because we are. It's hard to explain it when you meet people that are equally passionate, like you're explaining. It is a bond that is different than you have with most people in real life, and it's obviously it's equal for things like sports and others, but something is different about it. People have. And I think a part of it is because it lies so much in nostalgia. I mean, you grew up with a lot of these films. A lot of us, we grew up, watching blurry TV films at 1:00 in the morning or something, and knowing that we all had that shared experience. And what we are seeing now, I mean, Duel to the Death has never looked better than it did on that Blu-ray.
yeah.
Even in most theaters, it never played as clean as it does right now.
No. I mean, the fans nowadays. I mean, look. I mean, it's it's a two-sided coin. Like there are people who oh, I never, I wish I could have seen these in Chinatown theaters, to enjoy this community experience. But hey, I mean, it was crappy quality back then. A lot of scratches, a lot of missing frames and stuff. You were seeing this film in such pristine condition, like they were shot yesterday. So it is kind of it's a compromise, right? You give up the community experience of a crowd sharing the experience, but then you get to see the film in such a great condition that the way the filmmakers intended. So in a way, I mean, maybe it's not a fair trade-off, but at least, hey, it is. I mean, like I said, like you said, these films hardly look any better now than they did even when they were released. And I think the closest we can still get to this kind of community experience is to go to conventions. That's why we do, like me and Rick Myers, we do the Comic-Con thing every year. We want to do that. We want to get the experience again, to have this big crowd watching these classic scenes and stuff. And like Duel to the Death, we have our 25th anniversary panel this year. Hard to imagine. We started back in 1997 or 98. We did a 25th anniversary edition, and of course, I said we got to show Duel to Death. We got to show it because when we initially showed Duel to Death in the late 90s at Comic-Con, the whole place like erupted, with all these yells and screams and applause and stuff. So I said, look, I got to show one scene from Duel to Death, and it's the same impact. People loved it. People were laughing, clapping, and that was like my way of trying to replicate the movie theater going experience for these films, because you can't do that anymore. There's no more Chinatown theaters; they're all gone.
Wow.
Even if you say, "Oh, I can," like if I go to Hong Kong, I might be able to do this, but Hong Kong audiences are not like Western audiences. They're much more behaved. They don't clap, they don't yell and stuff. They'll laugh at the jokes, obviously. They're much more enthusiastic for a Stephen Chow film than a kung fu film. But yeah, I was just trying to replicate that movie going experience for the new generation, really.
That's nice. I'm glad that you're bridging that gap. Another bridge that we can build here, you just bring up other types of Hong Kong films. Knowing how much you know about Hong Kong cinema, do you think there are any other genres of Hong Kong, or even just Asian cinema in general, that you think might be on the verge of coming to Western cinema through some of these labels that we might be seeing more of in the near future?
Well, I'll be honest with you, for the next year, you're still going to see a lot of classic titles.
That's good.
Yeah, mostly classic titles. I guess I can't name the title, obviously, but I can name like some of the stars, I guess. There'll be more Stephen Chow titles. There will be more Johnny To titles. There'll be Jet Li titles. And there will be a few Jackie Chan titles, and maybe a Bruce Lee title or two. So there will be still the old classics, or from the 80s and 90s and what have you. The newer films is a little bit less because the Hong Kong output has diminished so much. Especially in the recent years. With the national security law and then the new censorship amendment to the bill, the film censorship bill, which like you can't badmouth the police, you really kind of cannot criticize the government anymore. You can have scenes that kind of provoke sedation, collusion, all that stuff. So a lot of the creative, creatively speaking, a lot of filmmakers' hands are tied. So you're kind of relegated to a certain genre of film. Like lately, I've noticed a lot of courtroom drama films, from Hong Kong. Sparring Partner, I think that's like the latest film, which Welgo actually bought it, to my surprise, because Welgo usually buy kung fu film or martial arts film.
Yeah.
But they bought this called I think it's called a Sparring Partner, which is a courtroom drama film, like a murder thingy. But that's the kind of film they're making now, and they're really popular in Hong Kong right now. And I think I know why, because the filmmakers are trying to use these kind of genre to really comment on the current Hong Kong, the situation in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So like in this film, The Sparring Partner, there's a character who like talks just like Joshua Wong, and I think that kind of gives the local Hong Kong people a little bit of nostalgia. He reminded me of Joshua Wong. Of course, he's been in jail for like 2 years now, exactly 2 years. So yeah, it's this kind of nostalgia which kind of really boosted the Hong Kong box office. So you have like this film, The Sparring Partner, which is actually a Category 3 courtroom drama film with some gruesome murder scenes and stuff. It's actually making tons of money in Hong Kong. And I think that they had elements like I mentioned in the film that kind of evoked this general sympathy among the Hong Kong moviegoers, to the point where they would go back and rewatch the film just to get that feeling.
Right. So it's kind of a form of protest, basically.
In a kind of form of artistic silent protest, I guess. Yes.
Yeah.
And so also comedies, there's a lot of comedy. There's like 2 comedies that are making tons of money in Hong Kong right now, and like both comedies kind of have this theme about the importance of family, and also like they're like dialogues like, it doesn't matter where we are, we're still a family. And of course, that talks to a lot of the the Hong Kongers who have left Hong Kong because of the the BNO visa scheme, which allows any Hong Kong resident with a BNO passport that they got before the handover, BNO, British National Overseas, to go to the UK. So like, before it's really hard for you to just immigrate to the UK, but now as long as you have a BNO passport, you can just apply.
Good to go.
Yeah, so it became really, I wouldn't say low cost, but much more cost efficient way to go to the UK. And so in like past year and a half or 2 years, over 300,000 Hong Kongers have gone to UK. So,
Wow.
so when you watch these comedies, for both overseas Hong Kongers and the local Hong Kongers, to hear dialogue like that, obviously it strikes a nerve,
Wow.
And I think that accounts for the popularity. So, but I don't see a lot of the labels probably buying these films because obviously these are not as popular or as money making, so to speak, as
Right.
your Jet Li or Stephen Chow, whatever your
Of course.
action films. Yeah,
But yeah, obviously there's still a lot of films from back. I mean, especially like the '90s. I feel like there's a lot from the '90s that we still haven't even started to barely dip into. And I think in the next probably 2 or 3 years, we're going to see some of those start coming out.
definitely.
I'm curious. You've done a lot with Eureka and 88. Are there any other labels that seem to be suddenly taking up a lot of your time?
Yeah, no, I've done 3 commentaries for Arrow.
Yeah.
I did 2 for the Short Scope Volume 2 set. The Man Monkey Kung Fu and Barefoot Kid. I did an unannounced title for them, and
Nice.
actually I'll be doing another title this weekend for them.
Good.
It's a
That's
classic.
good to hear.
It's a classic that I'm so honored to do.
That's great.
Yeah.
But I mean, we have so many labels jumping into the Hong Kong side of things. We've got even Vinegar Syndrome doing a lot of Hong Kong stuff.
I did
We've got
I did 2 commentaries for them. Yeah.
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 Hopefully more of those coming from you soon. We'll see.
Yeah.
We've got Chameleon in Australia. They've been putting out some good titles. Let's see. We just had the Neon Eagle. Have you been following them? They got announced their side project to Cauldron and Mondo Macabro.
No, I haven't. No.
They're doing a Kill Butterfly Kill.
That's
And
a Taiwanese title, isn't it?
that one is, yes. They've announced a partnership with IFD, the films from back then, but they said there are some Hong Kong films coming. So I think they're calling it trashy Asian titles is what they're going to focus on. But there's a lot right now. Are there any titles that nobody's announced, you haven't been able to do, it's not upcoming, that you would love to do, and maybe there's an issue with rights or elements or something like that you just might not be able to do?
Well,
like a wish list title.
Well, obviously more Johnny To, like The Mission, The Longest Night, which I love, so obviously those. And then, well, what else? It's hard to say because obviously, you talk about titles that nobody has bought yet, so to speak. So
yeah,
so it's kind of hard to say, if unless I know. Okay. Swordsman 2, I would love to do. Swordsman 2 is such a hectic film. It covers so like Choi Hart and Ching Siu just like firing all cylinders on that film. So many things bombasting you that I really want to kind of comment on that. But,
nice.
Yeah, it's hard to think of the title unless I kind of really know, because to think of the title out of Cageman. Actually, Cageman I would love to do. Cageman won from Jacob Djeng. It won the 1991 Best Picture at the Hong Kong Film Award. It's a 3-hour film about people living in cage housing in Hong Kong, and it's great. It's a wonderful film. Wonderful film, and I would love to do, maybe not the entire film because it's 3 hours, but I would love to do scene commentary, because that film has a lot of long takes. Like you have seen, they're like 10, 15 minutes long. One camera take. The camera just follows the character as you speak, almost like you're watching a stage, like theatrical stage drama. So to speak. I love that film. So I hope one day some boutique label would give it the classy treatment that it deserves.
Interesting. I'm curious because I think the last time that you and I talked, we didn't talk about this very much. What other kind of films is Frank Djeng into other than these classic Hong Kong films? What else do you truly appreciate?
Sci-fi.
Sci-fi, nice. What are some of your favorites?
My favorite, 2001, definitely. 2001 is definitely my all-time favorite sci-fi film. War films, Apocalypse Now would be, I would say Apocalypse Now is my favorite war film.
Nice.
Lawrence of Arabia. Yeah, I love those. I love some of the classic films. I think they're really nicely shot. I like sci-fi. I like Japanese films.
Nice.
Not just Ultraman, also drama films, comedies. I love Koreeda's film. I mean, I think they're great.
Yeah,
Koreeda. Like my favorite Koreeda film is actually My Little Sister. You know, that is
I don't think I've had a chance to see that
is
one
a
yet.
wonderful film.
Nice.
What else? Definitely not horror. I'm not a horror fan, unfortunately. So I have people who ask me to do commentary for horror film, that I turn it down.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I actually said no to a horror film commentary. What else? Like drama. I mean, like Wong Kar-wai films. Well, but you said other than Hong Kong cinema, so I guess Japanese cinema, British cinema. I love British films. I like how they portray the middle class, like lower middle class.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the way they like the Mike Leigh films, and even like current, like the recent. I saw Empire of Light last week. I love it. I thought it was great.
A lot of boutiques are finally dipping into some of those classic British films. It feels like.
Yeah.
Got Radiance is starting to do some good work with some of those old films. And
I'm actually doing commentary for Radiance film.
Oh wow, nice! Yeah, Fran is great. I had Fran on the channel just a couple months ago. That company is really going to be something special. I think.
Yeah.
It feels so odd because we've been talking about them for so long and we don't have a single title in hand yet. But now it's finally, just a couple weeks away. We'll be able to see that very first one. So I'm very excited.
Fran already asked me to do a commentary for a film. So. I hope to get it done on time.
That does not surprise me because Fran has great taste, so I'm glad he's reaching out to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Last thing, other than the fact that we have improved so much on the restoration side, with you having made your impact in the late '90s and the early 2000s, what else do you think the labels could be doing potentially to give more? Reverence to these films? Do you think there's anything else on home video that we're missing still? And not titles, but just in terms of the presentation of what we're doing for these?
I think we're still missing a lot of drama stuff, really. Like a lot of the good drama from Asia. But obviously, they're not money makers, which I completely understand why the labels might not want to do them because, really, the bottom line is, they may be in the business of, preserving and promoting these films, but their main objective, of course, is still to make money. So I completely understand that, they wouldn't want to touch or they want to do some of these drama titles. I'm so glad that Eureka did touch Throwdown. I was beyond, delighted that they did Throwdown because that's probably my favorite Johnny To film. It's hard to choose between Throwdown and Exile, but to me, Throwdown is just so special because it's really him trying to be Kurosawa, and
yeah.
It's films like that I think we should see more. Well, I hope to see more. Like even like films like Dream Lovers with Stephen Chow and Bridget Lin from the 80s. Some people think, oh, that's pretentious crap, but no, it's artsy. It is artsy. Okay, maybe it's pretentious, but it's artsy.
But it deserves it.
Yeah, it deserves. Well, one film that I think definitely deserves it, and Autumn's Tale. Really, really, it already got a 4K remaster. So why can't we have somebody here? I mean, here meaning UK or the boutique labels just releasing it here so that people would know that hey, Chow Yun-fat is more than just a guy holding two guns. You know what I mean? And how gorgeous Cherry Chung really is. That sort of thing. So yeah, definitely. And Autumn's Tale. Films like that I hope to see more from the labels. I think Eureka is trying to do something like that. They're trying to balance it so that they won't be perceived as just a label will keep churning out kung fu stuff, action stuff. They start doing Toei films, which I think is great. They're doing Violent Streets, and then they're doing Bullet Train. I mean, not the Brad Pitt one, of course, but the Ken Takakura Bullet Train.
Yeah.
So it's films like that I want to see. I want to see more Japanese film. Really. I mean, I know like people like Arrow, label like Arrow has done quite a lot of Japanese film, but it wouldn't hurt to do more, more Japanese.
Well, that, and I feel like they've slowed down a lot. They were doing a lot of Japanese, and now it seems to be a lot more spread out. Arrow's had a kind of an odd year. A lot of what they used to be doing, it seems like they've had to put some stuff on pause.
Well, I think maybe it has to do with some of the departures of the staff, I believe.
Yeah.
Right. So that's possible. So.
But you mentioned Eureka, and it's really important to highlight them because they've done a lot for home video in the last couple of years, and a lot of people are kind of quiet about Eureka. The amount of stuff that they've been able to release in pristine quality with stuffed to the gills with extras, with titles that people never dreamed of getting. Releases like this is astonishing, and yet every single time they put out announcements, we get random people complaining like, all you're doing is Asian stuff, and all you're doing is when they put out the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari from the 20s, that all you're doing is this artsy, black and white. Nobody cares. Like, there's so many different tastes out there and so many different movies that we can all respect, that it should be that kind of community where we're all just supporting and lifting each other up.
Exactly. Eureka to me is like the Criterion of UK.
Absolutely.
They have the massive cinema series. So why would you think that they would just do kung fu title? Of course they have to do Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Of course they have to do like other films. They have to do artsy films because they have this massive cinema series for crying out loud.
Right.
So that label, they have that little series. Of course, that series is for films like that, and it's only healthy for a label to have a variety of genre, So in a way, and I think I'm telling the truth when Eureka is probably, doing all these kung fu action films so that they can do more of these, the rarer, the more non-money makers, the more obscure films. So in a way, it kind of balances out things. That's, I think, hopefully that's their philosophy, that okay, we have these mass market, pleasers like like Roy Warrior, Yes Madam, all these kung fu stuff. But then, and sales from these can help us bring out more stuff like Caligari or those animations things and all that stuff. And to me, like, that is a really healthy thing for a label to have a variety. I mean, if you are just going to do action cinema, just change your name. Don't call yourself, just add like an Asian cinema or action thing label to your name, But yeah.
But even other action, not necessarily action, but even just other Asian cinema that they've put out, that's not going to be big money makers, like the Joseph Kuo box set they put out. That probably never would have sold like crazy if they didn't have this presence that they've had for the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, I'm really surprised that they did the Joseph Kuo box set. I think it's great. But first, I think it's great that they're highlighting Taiwanese film, Taiwanese martial arts film that people like. Because like I was asking some of these fans, like, when you grew up watching these films, do you know this is from Taiwan, this is from Hong Kong? Like even people like Michael Worth, who I did commentary for, he said, sometimes I have no idea. I don't know this from Taiwan. He said, I would know this from Taiwan because I know this was directed by Lee Zhou-nam, for instance.
That's the only reason.
Yeah, if this is a Lee Zhou-nam film, I know this from Taiwan because he knew Lee Zhou-nam is from Taiwan. So, but yeah, I mean, to put so much care on the Taiwanese director and to do such a mammoth box set with 8 titles, that's amazing. And I'll tell you one other thing: that box set from planning to release, 3 months. 3 months. They approached me in August and said, look, we're doing this Joseph Kuo box set. We have 8 films. How many commentaries can you do? and I look at it like, you know what? I can only, I'll do 4. And I said, I got to do it with a partner. I can't do it by myself. No way.
Right.
It's impossible for me to just do research on 4 films within, I mean, we're saying it got released within 3 months, but really I have 2 months because they need a month to press and all that stuff. Look, Eureka turnaround time has always been super fast, which always amazes me. Like they can have me turn in stuff almost like just a little over a month before the street date, and that always amazes me. It's like, how can you do it? And then I just asked them. They just said, well, we just do it. They can even make changes during QC. By the way, like let's say they have a QC this, and then they found like error in the subtitles, they can still fix it. It's like amazing.
Wow.
But anyway, going back to Joseph Kuo, it's like to have this box set and say, we want to release by November for the Christmas, so that for the Christmas sales. I said, I was thinking you guys are crazy, but we did it. We did it, and I was able to do it because I found partners in doing it. I had John Charles to do 2 of them with me, and Michael Worth did 2 of them with me. So. And I think that was the first time I actually started having partners doing commentary, and I really enjoy it too.
Wow. Sharing
is caring, okay? One thing. But also, like, I think I felt that people like Michael Worth and John Charles and, of course, FJ DeSanto, who have been doing quite a lot of commentary recently, they also have something valuable to contribute. And
absolutely.
And they're fans. The main thing is they're fans, and and not just fans for fans' sake, they also have a good, like, analysis, knowledge,
Right.
and I mean, of the film itself, which I felt was like worthy of contributing. Like Michael is also a filmmaker and he's a cinematographer, so I love the fact that when we talk, he would talk about the visual aspect, like how this scene is all done in one take, and had he not mentioned it, I wouldn't even notice it. That sort of thing. And to me, that really added a lot of additional flavor to the commentary. Yeah, but
I agree.
Go Set, man, that was crazy.
And that's why I'm glad that we're seeing like a more diverse cast of contributors to all these releases, because it seems like back in the day it was a little bit of a club you had to be a part of to do some of those. And nowadays, I mean, we've got more women filmmakers, more people of color filmmakers, more from random countries. I mean, we've got people from Australia doing commentaries on releases, and it's the power of the internet is making the world so much smaller that we can have people doing commentaries remotely together. They're literally filming from Troy Howarth and Nathaniel Thompson and Eugenio Ercolani from Italy. They're all filming a commentary at the same time, and none of them are ever even in the same corner of the world.
No, I mean, like the two John Charles, the two commentary on the Joseph Cole set I did, John Charles, it was done remotely because John Charles is in Toronto, and then I have two upcoming commentary which I'm going to do with John Charles again, also remotely, from Toronto. So I mean, sometimes you just don't have a choice; you got to do it remotely. Otherwise you have to, even one of you have to fly over to.
Right.
I mean, I would always prefer doing them live with someone with me right next to me. That will always be the preference. But sometimes, you just have to do it. It's just like interviewing Ronnie Yu. Ronnie Yu was very hesitant to have a camera crew going to his home because that was, for Bright White Hair, because it was doing COVID.
Right.
Completely understandable. And so we thought, well, if we're okay, we do it by Zoom. We said sure, and that's how we did it. So Zoom is like a compromise. Remote interviews are compromise, but hey, sometimes you just have to make it work, and that's how we did it. Or another way is to basically have the participant shoot themselves, so that you have a better quality of the interview to make it look like he was actually shot with a crew at his or her place, when it's actually the person shooting it themselves, like Richard did for Bright White Hair, like Joe Tai did for Bright White Hair. They shot their own interviews, sort of thing, with a high def camera and stuff, and it looks just like the crew doing it. So, yeah.
The hard part, a lot of these filmmakers and contributors, these films are getting really old, and a lot of them are unwilling to do that, from what I've been hearing lately.
I heard, I do have people turning down some interview for some of the titles. Yeah. So, I mean, not just age, but also like they worry about COVID, especially the Hong Kong talent. A lot of them, like during the Omicron, height of Omicron, a few talents actually turned down the interview request because they're out of fear for COVID. So
it makes sense, and with how many lives it took, I mean, it had a huge impact. So that makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
Frank, you've been fantastic. Thanks for coming back on here. I appreciate all the insight, and again, the contributions are timeless, necessary, and again, you're just the perfect tour guide, and I will continue to use that label, because you are the man that makes you remember certain things about films as you rewatch them, and I wouldn't want it any other way. On
thank you so much. Thank you, and I hope to get to do more next year. I did, like by the end of this year, I would have done close to 50 commentary just this year.
50 just in 2022.
Yes, well, including the joint commentaries, of course, but still 50. So I don't think I'll be able to do 50 next year. I don't think there'll be that many films for me to do next year. And also, like you said, there are more people coming on board.
Right.
Like you look at like for instance, the Shout. Like you see the Shout Factory Jackie Chan collection. You have like David West and like the other guy. So, but you're seeing more contributors. Which is of course a good thing to have. But yeah, I mean, hopefully I'll get to still do as many films as the label will let me do next year, so that I can continue to share my, knowledge, my passion, so that you get to know the film a little bit more, so that you appreciate the film a little bit more, and hope you enjoy the film, more than you would normally do just by watching it.
Well, some of the labels watch this, so hopefully that inspires them to keep calling you. Thanks for your time, Frank, and hope to have you on again someday.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, sir.